All right, so we're diving deep today into a pretty fascinating little story.
Yeah, this was kind of juicy.
You know, we've got MMA legends in the mix, we've got a music icon.
Worlds colliding.
Exactly, worlds colliding. So we're talking about John Jones, Chael Sonnen, and the one and only 50 Cent.
And how they all ended up in the same spot at the same time.
Well, more than just ending up in the same spot, this little interaction really highlights the weird and sometimes awkward social dynamics you can get when you throw fame into the mix.
Oh, for sure. And you know how sometimes, even with good intentions, things can go a little sideways?
Yeah, exactly. So let's break this down for everyone listening because the story's got some twists and turns.
Absolutely. Let's unpack it.
So picture this. 50 Cent sees John Jones, and he's clearly a fan.
I mean, who wouldn't be? Jones's record speaks for itself.
Right. The guy's a legend. So 50 walks right up to Jones and asks for a photo. You know, like any fan would do it totally normal, right?
Totally. And it really speaks to Jones's level of fame that someone like 50 Cent, a global icon in his own right, is starstruck.
It's like you said, worlds colliding. But here's where it gets interesting. Chael Sonnen just happened to be standing right there as this was all going down.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. And Jones, maybe trying to be polite or maybe sensing some potential awkwardness, tries to bring Sonnen into the photo, too.
I can totally see that. Like, hey, Chael, come on in here for the pic.
Exactly. But according to Sonnen's own account of the story, 50 Cent was only interested in a photo with Jones.
Oh, man.
There was no, disrespect towards Sonnen or anything. It's just that 50 was laser focused on getting that pic with Jones.
Which really highlights the, those sometimes unspoken hierarchies of fame.
Yeah. And you got to remember, this was years ago when Jones was still actively fighting, and Sonnen had already moved into more of an analyst role.
Right, so their public profiles were probably perceived a bit differently, especially by someone outside the MMA bubble like 50 Cent.
And of course, the story doesn't end there, because 50 being 50, he posts the photo on social media.
Of course he does.
And his caption, well, let's just say it added a whole other layer to this little encounter.
I'm on the edge of my seat here.
50 Cent was super stoked about meeting Jones, and then he jokingly referred to Sonnen as the guy who photobombed the picture.
Ouch.
Yeah, it was a funny caption, but you can almost feel Sonnen cringing, right?
Absolutely. I mean, who hasn't been in a situation where you felt a little out of place or like you didn't quite belong? This just happened to play out on a much larger stage.
And Sonnen actually talked about this whole thing on his show, Good Guy, Bad Guy. He was totally open about how awkward it felt and how 50 Cent's joke was funny because it was true.
You know what I find really interesting about that? Sonnen's willingness to talk about it so openly. It kind of shows a real self-awareness and maybe even an acceptance of where he was at in that moment.
Yeah, he owned it. And to make things even funnier, Daniel Cormier was there when Sonnen was telling the story, and he just burst out laughing and told Sonnen to shut up.
Classic DC.
I know, right? It really shows you that even within the world of MMA, these guys can appreciate a good, awkward celebrity encounter story.
Oh, definitely. And it's relatable, right? I mean, we've all had those moments where we try to do the right thing and it just doesn't quite work out the way we planned.
Absolutely. So what's the takeaway here? I think it's a good reminder that fame can be a really strange thing.
Definitely. It can distort perceptions and create these weird power dynamics that we don't always see.
And even with the best intentions, those dynamics can lead to some pretty unexpected and sometimes cringeworthy outcomes.
You try to be inclusive and you end up being the photo bomber. It's life, right?
Exactly. Life in the spotlight.
For sure. So the next time you find yourself in a slightly awkward social situation, remember even MMA legends and hip-hop icons aren't immune.
It happens to the best of us.
Absolutely.
And sometimes you just gotta laugh it off.
You gotta laugh it off.
Well, that's our deep dive for today.
A story of fame, awkward encounters, and a good dose of humor.
Until next time, keep it real and try not to photobomb any celebrities.
Words to live by.